So you were really thinking outside of the box initially just out of survival. And then you really realized, hey, there's an opportunity here, utilized it for your clients, showed them how to leverage it up, which probably built a reputation for you as well, right?
No, it absolutely did because keep in mind I'm balancing this whole thing of being young and looking,
Yeah.
right? So when I was 18 in high school and people would ask me how old I was, I told them that I noticed it was like, oh, it would create this skepticism. So, I wore a fake ring, grew a mustache, and then when they'd ask me, I just say, well, how old do you think I am? And then when they tell me, you look like you're 19, and this was back then, and I'd be like, oh, that's so great, how flattering, and then move on, right?
Yeah.
And so it was always and it was at a time in the early 90s where interest rates were 10 and a half.
Yep.
Unemployment was really high. People kept falling out of escrow. And so I just I decided I needed to up the game for understanding finances, different ways to leverage. And because of that, all of a sudden, people didn't care how old I was, right?
Right, because you were educated and you had done the research. And that's an important point that I want everybody to hear. This is a business where you need to be educating yourself and understand different things like this, because that's exactly where you build trust with clients. If you show them a solution and it makes sense, you're the go-to guy. You become the go-to guy or gal.
That's precisely what happened was is these individuals that would become my clients, I would do 2 to 3 transactions a year with them. And I'd sell them a fourplex, sell them a house, they'd save up cash, we'd buy another fourplex. I always told them get attached to your fourplexes because there's a thing called 1031 exchange. In 2 years, I'm going to list those fourplexes, I'm going to sell them and exchange you into a bigger apartment unit. And by the way, I'm doing the same thing and I'm just building my cash flow. And so they really liked that. And so instead of me having to send birthday cards and Christmas cards to remind them that I exist, so that in 5 years when they go to sell that house, they might list with me, they're constantly calling me, and then doing another transaction a year. And so that built up a momentum of being able to like do a high volumes of sales from
Yes.
1998 to 2004, like, 103, 104 transactions. Most of them were double ended. And then by the time like 2000 rolled around, I'm also doing the financing piece behind them. So I'm doing the sale, most of the time double lending it, doing the financing, giving them an entry strategy to acquire a fourplex, and then already planting the seed that I'm going to list this and then sell it in 2 years and sell you something bigger. And of
Wow.
course, I could just track the 4 unit or 8 unit or 16 units income, and I can determine how here's what it's going to be worth. Here's what the next guy is going to need as a down and a closing to buy it. And again, I would see that okay, instead of them making 1,000, now the next guy is going to be netting 800. And I just kept it to a point where I was like, okay, well, it was still worthwhile from a cash on cash return, from a cap rate. And so I was able to like sell the same building 3 to 4 times over, a 6 year period to different clients and just kind of leapfrog them up. And then of course, as those clients who were with me in the mid 90s, late 90s, started growing their portfolios into much larger and larger apartment complexes like 20 units, 60 unit, 100 unit buildings, we couldn't just stay in California. So I started 1030 and exchanging their assets into Texas, Arkansas, Tennessee, Florida, Maine,
Wow.
New York. And so I got my broker's license in those different states throughout those different times. I bought properties during those times. And so that created this great vertical integration between having a separate real estate company. At the time, when I was creating and building my own portfolio of apartment units, it didn't occur to me that would be like what some people have as careers these days, right? Like syndicators, like, what do you do? Oh, I syndicate. I get a bunch of people's money and we go out and buy these large apartment units and then we have them managed. And I was just like, oh, that was my side hustle. But it was kind of like at a time where, when people would do fixed flips and people
Yeah.
consider that a job. And now like there's an entire science behind fixing flip properties. So that was that trajectory. And so, from 2000, so in 1998, I started my own real estate company. By 2000, I had my own mortgage company, separate entity, separate employees. And then, of course, I have these clients that are buying apartment units, right, with tenants, at least 4 units. So 4 tenants, 8 units or more. And so a lot of them are looking for property management. And so, we created a separate entity and, we would sell them the asset, manage the asset, and then, of course, plant the seed of like 3 to 5 years, you could sell this in exchange for better, but only do it if it's to your benefit. And so we had this great situation where we have these captured customers because we're giving them, and again, I didn't even realize at the time I could charge for the advice on like, oh, okay, here's an entry and exit strategy, here's tax solutions to shelter the income and whatnot. But as I built my own portfolio of investments, then my requirements for having these really upgraded CPAs and accountants, came up, and then more complicated ways for sheltering income. And so I would just pass this knowledge on to my clients, saying, here, let me recommend you my CPA, let me recommend you my attorney, because now suddenly they're having these issues that I'm dealing with where you've got lots of income and then you've got different benefits that you want to be aware of from educating from a tax standpoint. So I'm passing this education all along to my clients, and I'm just creating this huge value where they're sticking with me. So a lot of those clients from 1997, 1998, they're still my clients today. Some of them I've become partners with on much larger buildings together. Their kids have grown up, and I've seen them born, and then now they've gotten their real estate license and they're working in the office with me. So,
it's been an interesting life that you never saw it evolved, right?
yes, yeah, exactly.
Well,